Welcome to Convos on the Coast, the podcast of the First Coast Apartment Association and your go-to source for insights, strategies, and trends shaping Northeast Florida multifamily housing market. My name is Ben Zeigler with Sweetwater Restoration, and I am joined here today by Executive Coach Aaron Ellinger. Today, we're going to talk about time management. And the funny thing is, Aaron is actually my executive coach. I've been working with him for about a year and a half. And during our time working together, we've never spoken about time management. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you today, Aaron.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Ben.
Today's episode is being recorded from FCAA headquarters in sunny Jacksonville, Florida, and is sponsored by Community Concierge Services. So welcome, Aaron. Looking forward to getting this conversation started. First off, let's talk about the why of time management. Why, in your coaching experience and everything, why is this important?
Yes, time management. Well, first of all, the concept itself is a bit of a misnomer, I think. We really can't manage time. We each get 24 hours in a day. So it's really about how do we use that time? How efficient are we? How productive are we? And it is important. As you were saying, we haven't talked about it in a year and a half. I question, that's amazing. I guess that means that you've had so many other things for us to talk about.
So many other issues we've had to deal with.
Right. Haven't gotten to it. But time management or productivity, whichever term we want to use, is something that is widely recognized as something we can all get better at. I think back to 1992.
Man, you're that old?
Yes, I am that old. And I can actually remember the day. August 3rd, 1992 was my first day out of college in my new job. I started with a consulting company, and I go in, and the very first day, I walk into a classroom and took a 8-hour Franklin Planner time management course. And
Franklin Planner, those are those actual paperback planners, right?
Yes. So depending on the age of our listeners, you will probably hear something called Franklin Covey. That was a merger of companies, but back in those days it was Franklin Planner.
Is that Steve Covey's company?
It is.
Okay.
It is Covey Company. Back in those days, we actually had physical paper, and it was in this like kind of a big trapper keeper kind of a thing. Mine was made of pleather. That's fake leather. And it was like 8.5 by 11. It weighed about 20 pounds, I swear, in my briefcase. We didn't have backpacks back then. And I was trained on the importance of managing time and organizing time and prioritizing. Some of the things I'm sure we'll be getting into today. But what strikes me about that is that was over 30 years ago. And that company had recognized the importance of being efficient and being productive and managing time well. And here we are 30 years later, and it's still a hot topic. In fact, I would argue people seem more busy now, even though with technology and AI and everything else happening around us, we're supposed to be able to do more faster. We just try to get more in.
Well, there's more distractions too. I mean, I remember first coming into the company 20 years ago, we didn't have email on our cell phones. We did not have, cell phones was a flip phone where when you're texting, you're hitting multiple times to get to the letter. And so there's more access to us. And so we'll talk about time blocking a little bit, but it does make it more difficult to stay focused, which is why time management is even more important.
Yeah, for sure. And so that was a really long answer on my part, but you asked me the why. Why is this important? What we know is when we are not being proactive in this area, it creates stress. We're not as effective, right? We tend to be working on things that may not be the most important things. And ultimately, it can result in being out of balance. So I like to use the term work-life harmony versus work-life balance. But either way, we're out of balance. We're out of harmony. We tend to work longer hours and trying to catch up, which is not healthy.
Yeah, so we call it work-life integration in the sense of there is a in the productivity and the time planning effectiveness isn't just in business. It is in their personal life as well. And I think a lot of the focus is put in business, but also the distractions of your phone and the distractions of everything else. When you do go home, there is a focus that needs to be changed from the business side to spending time with your loved ones and your family. And so this topic of being effective and being productive is not just in the work environment, but also is in your home life as well.
Totally agree. I find that many people make excuses on why they can't be good in this area. For example, that's fine for everyone else, but you don't know my job,
Right.
and you don't know my boss, and my boss, I don't control my time. My boss controls my time.
And my team members need me, and I have to be on call for them. They have to have access to me, the open door policy, so to speak.
Right. So I call that a bit of a victim mentality. Yes, we have other people who are making demands of us. We don't have 100% control. I acknowledge that. However, we can strongly and effectively impact how productive we are with our time. And so I think that's what we want to get into today is some practical tools that may help in this area.
So I think maybe we could say one of the biggest hurdles concerning this area is our mindset. Is this something that normal people can do? I used to think early on that, I have to be really disciplined in this, which you do. But maybe you're being distracted, or maybe you're being pulled so many different ways, and you fall into that victim mentality of maybe I am not just disciplined enough. Maybe I'm not organized enough. Maybe I can't control my day. And so there is a owner mentality that we have to take, that everyone has 24 hours a day. And how are we going to set that up, and how are we going to budget our time, so to speak? And as I've been thinking about this, I don't know, you're familiar with Dave Ramsey?
Absolutely.
So I'm on a big Dave Ramsey kick, and I think I'm on his 3rd or 4th book right now. And he talks about, if you want to win at money, you need to budget. And no one will win at money without having a budget. And so as I'm thinking about time management and thinking about being productive and thinking about effectiveness, we have to budget our time. Those 24 hours days, what's important with us, and budgeting our time, so to speak, to be able to win with that. And so hopefully as we talk through this, we can get some insights and some encouragement going for our listeners as well as each other as we all continue to try to budget this better.
Yeah, it's great. I love that concept. I think Dave says, tell every dollar where to go. And so telling every minute or every hour where to go is a great way to think about it.
That's great. So have you seen with your coaching, and I know you're an executive in a large company prior to you starting your executive coaching, have you seen this an issue on all levels, from the new line people that are hiring to your executive team? Or do you see the executive team have figured this out more and has been able to master, so to speak, the productivity and effectiveness?
My experience is that there is failure at every level. I don't correlate success from a productivity standpoint to organizational level. Some of the executives that I coach are really good at this. Some of them are really bad at this. And I've also, as you said, prior to becoming executive coach, I was a leader at a fairly large company, and I would say the same thing at every level. Medium, newer people. Some people are more naturally detail oriented, maybe a little bit more disciplined or organized, while others, really struggle with this. And going back to something you said earlier, I want to encourage our listeners, don't not take action because you're worried about being perfect. Get better. Just try something. You're going to find some of the things we talk about today are going to be effective for you. Some of them may not be effective, and that's okay. There's no formula.
Got to tailor it to what your specific needs are.
Exactly. This is more art than science. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of research. I will say that. There's many books out there, and so if this connects with you, I would encourage you to do some additional research around that. An author in a book that was very impactful for me is David Allen's Getting Things Done, GTD.
I haven't read that one.
And so I do recommend that just kind of for some base concepts and some really helpful tools. But there's a lot out there. But yeah, try something, do something. You can get better.
For me with that, when I started working at Sweetwater 19 years ago, and I was just selling, I was just responsible for myself. I found it a lot easier for me to schedule my day and for me to be really disciplined with that, more so than actually managing people. Are you familiar with disc profiling?
Mm-hmm.
So my profile is an I, so it's outgoing people and everything. And so the squirrels and the distractions of helping people out, I really had to be disciplined. And one of the books that really helped me was The One Thing by Gary Keller. Have you read that one?
Yes.
That has been great. And we'll talk through some of those things in a minute because I have some questions for you on that. But it was easier earlier on than it is later on. And as you have more responsibility and as my time is pulled 8 different directions, it's something that has to be very disciplined and somewhat rigid, but also with a lot of flexibility with it to be able to help your team out.
Yeah, I think you're touching on this, and this came up a little earlier, the idea of prioritization, understanding what's important.
Mm-hmm.
And a core concept when you're in this area of productivity is urgent versus important.
Yeah, the Eisenhower decision matrix, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Every good concept can be put into a 4-quadrant depiction. I've heard it called the tyranny of the urgent. So we usually don't need help managing our time to get to the urgent things. Yeah. That's because they're urgent. They're in front of us. Right. We know we got to get them done. It's the important things that are less urgent. Those tend to get procrastinated, pushed out. And that's where people get frustrated when I'm working with them. Like, I know I got to get these things done, and it's 2 weeks later, and I haven't made any progress. Right. What's going on? So,
and I feel like sometimes when early on when I was doing a checklist, my struggle was you want to get a lot done, and you're checking off the easy stuff and the stuff that you can get done. But the really hard things that you need to actually accomplish in your day, the one thing that needs to be completed for your day to be successful, takes more time. It's more focused. It's harder. And so something that really helped me with this was with the One Thing book. Are you familiar with the Pareto principle?
The 80-20 rule.
80-20?
Yeah.
You want to explain that?
Sure. Well, in the Pareto principle, the 80-20 can be used in so many different ways.
Crosses over in all areas of your life when you really think about it.
For example, 80% of your company's revenue probably comes from 20% of your clients and so forth.
And 80% of your wasted time probably comes from 20% of your employees or team members.
Yeah, that's probably true too. So if you look at the one thing, or I've also heard it called the critical few. So it's not necessarily one, but there's some small number, 2 or 3 things that are critical, that are absolutely important for you to get done today or this week or whatever time frame you're looking at. It's the 80-20. So that small percentage is probably going to take more time versus if you flip it around, 80% of your time is spent doing the less important, the 20%. And so understanding what those things are and identifying them clearly. So whether that's a prioritization on your task list of A, B, C, I've seen people use numbers. I've seen people just have a list of only the one thing and they put it on a sticky note and stick it in front of your monitor. There's ways to stay focused on that critical few or that one thing.
Right. Yeah. And as the 20% of the things that you as a leader should be focused on, delegate the 80%, the stuff that does not need your attention. So if let's say you're a maintenance supervisor and there's 20% of the tasks that should be done by you do that. And the 80% of the tasks that you can have the rest of your team do, delegate that to the rest of the team to accomplish. So you're focused on what your tasks are, and they're focused on what theirs are.
Delegation is, so for those people who can delegate, because I want to recognize not everybody has a team to delegate to, but if you have people to delegate to, what you're delegating and how you're doing that can be one of the single most important ways to become more productive.
Right.
Most leaders that I work with are not delegating enough, and what they are delegating, it's not effective. So they end up staying more involved in those tasks than they need to. Yep. So
And don't feel guilty to delegate. I mean, your team wants to help and they want to contribute, and so delegate it. And if you listening can go and listen or look at the Eisenhower metrics, urgent and less important, that's the quadrant that gets delegated and everything.
Real quick on the delegation piece, I always point people to Michael Hyatt's five levels of delegation. So if you want to look that up, that's
a great
really
podcast.
It's really useful. Yeah, great podcast, and that's been really helpful to me and to many of my clients just to understand, how you're delegating, how to become more effective.
Today's episode of Combos on the Coast is brought to you by Community Concierge Services, or CCS for short. Are you looking to add or improve doorstep trash at your community? Or how about sprucing up your site with professional pressure washing, gutter or roof cleaning? And don't forget that dryer vents and chimneys need to be cleaned out and thoroughly inspected every year. CCS is one-stop shop for all of these, so make your life easier and consolidate them with us. Reach out to Fallon Sharp. The ways you can reach her are located down on your screen. So take a look and she'll be happy to provide you with quotes and get you on the books.
So the 80-20 rule is very helpful, but let's take a couple steps back. How do you schedule your time on a calendar? Do you have multiple calendars? Do you use Trello? Do you have all of it on one calendar? How do you do that?
Yeah, so talking about calendaring, it's really important that that we use one calendar. Now, I do get pushback from that, and I say, well, I've got a personal calendar and I've got a work calendar, as long as it can show up in the same calendar, so on your device. So if on your phone, I can look in one place and see multiple calendars, I still call that one calendar. What I suggest is not very effective is you have a work calendar on your phone and your family calendar is on the wall at home.
Are you still using the Franklin calendar?
I'm not using the Franklin calendar. So I do use Microsoft Outlook.
Yep.
I'm a Microsoft guy when it comes to those things. And so I do have two calendars. I have a work calendar and a personal calendar, and they show up together on my phone.
So your phone, your laptop, your iPad, everything is connected, so you always have the calendar in front of you.
That's right. And how I use that to schedule is I make sure that anything and everything is on there. In fact, if I would leave home and would accidentally forget my phone, I have to go back and get it because I won't even know where I'm going unless I pull up my laptop. So it really, really drives my schedule. My meetings are on there. My workouts are on there from my personal calendar. If I have things outside of work, everything is going there. And then the open time, we can talk about, time blocking or scheduling things on there. But the open time is where I think productivity can really improve. So if I'm in a meeting, I'm in a meeting. That's driving itself. Now I've got a 2-hour block in between meetings. How do I know what to do? Right. So it's not just the calendar, but it's your task list. To me, the combination of a calendar and a task list.
So you're using both within Microsoft?
So my task list is actually Trello.
Okay.
So I use Trello. That's a free online thing. I could use Outlook. I tried that for a little bit. I like the way Trello works a little bit easier. It's also on my phone. It's also everywhere. So it has a similar approach. But what I do if I have a 2-hour block is I'm going and I'm looking at my Trello board, and that is prioritized in front of me of what I'm going to work on next.
Okay.
And so that's driving that. Now, back to the urgent versus important thing. If I'm noticing that I'm not getting to the important things, then I will time block that on my calendar. And what that would look like, let's say that, so I'm writing a book right now, and that is important, but not urgent. And so often in an urgent day, I will not get to doing the writing that I need to today. So tomorrow, I will block out a 90-minute period, and I will say, write.
Yeah.
And so now when I get to tomorrow, I can get out of my meeting. I don't need to go look at Trello. It's already on my calendar. So that's what I mean by time blocking. I have some clients who literally block all the time on their day. That's pretty rare.
They block free time, block.
They will block it all.
Okay.
But that's less common. Most people are blocking their meetings, and they'll block the important, but they'll leave open period. It can be, it actually for some people creates stress when they look at their calendar for the day and there's no open spirit. Even if they've literally scheduled take a walk or take a break, it just creates this sense that
there's
it's
no
too
breathing
much.
room.
Right.
No.
So that's back to earlier where it's more art than science. I encourage people to try it. Try to schedule it all. Try to schedule less of it. See what works for you. For me, I like to have some open periods, but to schedule those things that I'm not getting to.
So when you time block, how do you minimize distractions? So do you have, I have 3 monitors in my office. Email seems to be always popping off and people needing a response. What do you do with the distractions?
Yeah, distractions. So I use Slack, I use email, got the cell phone, got all those things. What I find is it depends on where I am. So if I'm working in my home office, I also have multiple monitors. I will close down my messaging. So whether that's email, whether that's Slack, I do not turn my phone off because that's not how I want to interact with my clients and be available for that. So I do get interrupted from time to time from clients, but if it's not a client, I don't take the call. And so I do minimize distractions. I soundproofed my office in my home so that if the dogs are barking or other things like that, it tries to minimize those types of things. But certainly distractions is, when I think back to my clients, that is one of the most important things. And again, an area where people will say, but you don't know my job.
Yeah.
I can't minimize distractions. I have to be available. And I recognize that. If you're back to maintenance, your example before, you need to be available. If there's an urgent situation, you can't just completely block yourself away. So I understand that. But whatever you can do to minimize those is good.
In our company, we really focused on time blocking. We took our entire company through the One Thing book as well, and we did glass doors with blinds on the doors. And so when someone is time blocking, we would close the blinds and they know not to interrupt. The issue with it was we didn't know how long they were going to be time blocking for. And so you had team members that needed to talk to you but couldn't, and they didn't know if it was 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 hours. So what we started to do was writing with a dry erase marker on the glass 11:15. And so they knew you were time blocking until 11:15. And if you talk as a company and as a team, letting everyone know you have the freedom to take this time. You have the freedom to do this and you will not be interrupted. And please don't interrupt me during it. It really works cohesively in the office where everyone respects everyone's time blocking. They know when you're going to be stepping out of it. And so they just hold their questions until 11:15 and then they come. And so what I have seen, anything over 90 minutes of a block, I can't stay focused long enough for that. What have you seen with your years of coaching with time blocking?
Yeah, it depends on the person. For me personally, it's between 60 and 90 minutes.
Okay.
And I need to take a break. But for many people, it's a lot shorter than that. I think we're going to see even more of that as the younger generations come through. I just think attention spans are decreasing. And so I would say 30 minutes for some people, up to 90-ish minutes. I want to go back to your example, though, because you guys, that is remarkable. And I've been in your office and I've seen the glass windows and I've seen the writing on it, and it does work. That's not easy. You made physical changes within your office in order to promote this concept. I'm just curious, how did that roll out? Was everybody super excited about that day one? How did you make the decision as a leadership team to do that in the office?
Well, we do disaster restoration, so we're very reactionary as a company. I mean, we get a phone call at 9:00 at night and I'm in Texas the next day. And so as a company, we are very reactionary. And so to be able to get control of your schedule, to be able to get control of the time, we really had to be focused and we really had to get the entire team on it. And so, like I said, with not writing the time on it, that was very disjointed. People didn't know when they could come talk to you or not. And so we've kind of went through the iterative learning process of trying to see what doesn't work. We have a lady at our receptionist who has a door, but her office is open to the entry area. Well, she's put a sign up with like a piece of chalk written on the time that she's blocking, and then she puts headphones in and works, and people know to kind of leave her alone. And so there's places and times where it's not going to be ideal, but what we've learned is having the entire team on the same page to respect everyone's time blocking and still have access. I mean, there's times after I come out of a time block, I'll walk through my team and just stick my head in and make sure they don't have any questions, especially before I go into another maybe 90-minute section. We have a ping pong table upstairs. So sometimes it's really nice after working for 90 minutes in really deep work and focus to go blow some steam off and play some ping pong, go outside, take a walk and everything. So it is very much of a company needs to be on the same page for it to really work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really neat. I love how you solved the problem by writing on the window, because I could picture some company cultures when somebody figures out all I got to do is close my blinds and nobody bothers me.
Right.
And all of a sudden, 6 hours later, your blinds are still closed. That's not going to fly for too many organizations. The one challenge to that approach, the physical approach, is if you have multiple offices or you have people working remotely. Mm-hmm. And so obviously, if I'm in a different city, I can't see what is happening with your office door. How have you handled that, or have you thought about? I know most of you are in the office, so it's not a big problem. But how do you handle that part of it?
So we don't have remote work really. We have two offices. We have one in Orlando, one in Jacksonville. But the way I would address that would be have your team on a group chat, and if you're going into a time block section, just send the team. Say, hey, I'll be out until 11:15, and if you need me, I'll respond then, and silence your phone and start working. I have noticed for myself, and this kind of plays into that, my most productive time's in the morning. And so I work hard and time block the morning, and then I manage in the afternoon. I also have a really good friend of mine that owns a business, and his most productive time is between 8 at night and midnight. And so probably a majority of the people, I'd assume, mornings, they're more sharp and everything, but that's not everyone's. And so as you're talking through your team, make sure you guys understand each other's work patterns and so forth on it.
Yeah, that's very wise. There's some interesting research around energy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people actually say instead of managing time, you should manage your energy. Mm-hmm. And so what you're talking about and knowing yourself and knowing when are you most energetic. Is it the mornings? Is it the evenings? If it's like midnight to 5 a.m., I feel sorry for you and your wife or husband or partner. But in general, knowing that and then using that to schedule. Mm-hmm. So I know leaders who will not schedule, as you said, won't schedule any meetings in the morning. They'll do their harder thinking time, their important tasks, their time blocking in the morning, and then do things in the afternoon that require less schedule, or less energy. So knowing that and then using that is great.
Something that also time blocking has really helped me with is reducing multitasking. I think there's a misconception that multitasking is efficient and that you can get a lot more done. There's a false sense of productivity with it, but it does not allow you to be as productive. What can you kind of share?
Yeah, so I actually am a believer that multitasking does not exist.
Okay.
It's really task switching.
Okay.
And people who think they're multitasking are just switching tasks quickly. And some people are able to do it. However, when you're doing that, you are more than likely not giving your full attention to either task, or sometimes you're switching between two or three. So it's just a warning. Be very careful when you're doing that. And we've all had the experience when you're having a conversation or talking to somebody and they're multitasking and looking at their
texting
phone
while they're
or
talking to you.
It's not the best
I'm guilty
experience.
of that with my kids.
Well, sure. And we can tell when that's happening, and we don't feel like we have the full attention. So
I've heard some of the research behind that is multitasking or task switching reduces productivity up to 40%. and the quality goes down, takes longer. There's more mental fatigue with it. And so the time blocking, when I started doing that, that was kind of key to unlocking my productivity and effectiveness in my day.
Yep.
And I only time block 4 to 5 hours. I don't do the whole day.
Yep. I think that's wise. And one thing I want to make sure that we mention before we finish up today, and that is one of the most important things that I recommend regarding time management and productivity is to start your day with 10 or 15 minutes of planning time. So whenever you start your day, some of us are starting it at 6 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., doesn't matter. To block that off, look at your day. What am I doing today? What's my schedule look like? Are there any conflicts? What's important? What's my critical few? Or what's my one
Yes,
thing
that's when
I'm
you're
gonna
finding
do?
your one thing, your 20% that you want to accomplish that day.
Exactly. I find when I ask people, are you doing this? Less than half of the people that I ask that are starting their day that way. And so how are you starting your day? You're just showing up and you're digging into tasks right away, which is tempting because we all have more to do than we can get done in a day.
But are you digging into the most important?
Exactly. So by blocking that time, 10 minutes, I mean, it's not that much time, you are going to be more effective. You're going to be getting the right work done. And so I really strongly recommend that.
That's great. Well, as we are wrapping up, what one final thought do you have for our listeners today?
Yeah, I would go back to what we talked about earlier of try something. Right? Some people are intimidated by this concept and they say, I'm just disorganized, or this is just the way it is, or this is my life. I would encourage you, reject that.
Yeah.
This is a mindset thing. You can get better. You can do better. What's one thing you heard on this podcast? Go do some research, find a book, do something to take a step towards improving in this area. And then maybe the step you took doesn't help you at all. Try something different. Just keep experimenting. I am confident that each of us can improve in this area, but don't take no for an answer. Get going.
Well, and the mindset reminds me of the Henry Ford quote, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Aaron, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Always good to talk with you, Ben.
It's great spending time together and going to talk about how we can better ourselves professionally and personally. And today's sponsor was by Community Concierge Services. So thank you very much for sponsoring Convos on the Coast, and please check them out on their website. Do you just have a minute? Don't you love it when people stop into your office and ask you that? Well, stay tuned. We have the Maintenance Minute coming up on Convos on the Coast.
Welcome to your Maintenance Minute. I am Chris Miller-Schoen with MAA. As we all know, we are in the busiest season of the year. It's already hot outside, and therefore the ACs are already beginning to work overtime. We need to make sure we are changing filters, and when going to an AC call, take the extra time to check out everything from evaporator and condenser coils, float switches, and drains, just to mention a few. This could save you a callback in the long run. Always hook up both the high side and low side hoses, as these readings can give you so much information, such as impacted coils, compressors running hot, or even a restriction. Always charge by superheat or subcool to ensure a proper charge. Don't assume just adding Freon is going to solve your problem. Thank you for joining us today, and stay cool and hydrated.
That's a wrap on this episode of Combos on the Coast. Don't forget, our 2025 trade show is right around the corner next week, July 16th. Be sure to register now and join us for the biggest multifamily event of the year. We'll be recording our next episode live from the trade show floor, so keep an eye out for us. You just might be featured in an upcoming episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.